Okay, all of you are aware, there is no need for any introduction. You just notice the link there in the first slide, which gives a comprehensive COVID education link. This has got to date around 12 lectures in medicine related to doctors, and another 15-16 lectures related to general public on COVID. Okay. So that is the link which all of you will get it through Girija, and you can see any aspect of COVID. You can write from pathogenesis, etiology, and then oxygen treatment, whatever you would like to see, you can see in detail. But what is the objective of today's program? Today's program is just to concentrate absolutely on the home management guidelines, because 90% of the patients are being treated and also they come out of the home management alone. If we do that properly, are we doing it? We have to introspect. And the latest guidelines, by latest, every day, almost every week, the guidelines are being updated. The one that is updated was on 26th by Government of India, 26th of May, published on 27th, and that finds place in today's talk. And any one of you would like to reach me, you can contact me on WhatsApp or through the email from the website also. The numbers are provided here. The entire presentation will be shared with the organizers, and they will share with you. In addition, I am going to give you another 5 or 6 PDFs from Government of India, published PDFs on home management, home isolation, proning, and then also the guidelines, and whatever is the latest one I am going to share with her. Okay, what is this? We all know that COVID infection, 0 day is the day of the first symptom and not the day of test. All of us have a mistaken identity. I got tested on the 5th day and I call it as the first day. No, the day of the first symptom is the day 0, right? So testing can be done on the same day or after 5 days, or may never be done. That is irrespective of the day that it is tested. The first day or the 0 day is the day of the first symptom for all definitions that we are talking. So the infection will be maximum. By the 7th day, the viral excretion will be almost around 50% or 40% by 7th day, and by 14th day, almost around 95 to 98% excretion is over. A few excretors are there who excrete up to 21 days. So this is why the cutoff that 14 days, you need to keep the patient under isolation. 2 words, isolation and quarantine. Isolation is for people who are tested positive. Quarantine is for people who are exposed and not yet had the disease. Then when these people who are tested positive will have the viral excretion, 2 to 3 days, sometimes 5 days before the onset of the first symptom itself, the viral excretion occurs. That means unknowingly, before the symptoms develop, they would have transmitted to their contacts, particularly the family members or close associates. It's a very important point for us to note for treatment purposes. So the classification of the disease is no symptoms, not tested of course, and they are very healthy, no contact. People who had asymptomatic illness, that means they did not have any symptom, but they got tested either because their family member is positive or they were curious that they got tested. Pre-symptomatic, they have the waiting period for the report, they have the symptoms, but the test has been given after 2 or 3 days and then waiting for the report. They are called the pre-symptomatic. Then this is the most important. ILI, influenza-like illness, 90% of the cases fall under the mild cases. 10% of the people will develop the lung corona, which is called the pneumonia or the moderate disease, and some of them will progress on to severe illness, and as we have seen some doctors also just perishing for that due to dangerous illness. Not everybody gets the dangerous illness, not everybody gets a serious illness. Around 10% of the people will get pneumonia, COVID pneumonia, and our aim is to prevent the movement of ILI people into pneumonia and thereby reduce the morbidity and mortality. Right? Now, All of you are aware, being doctors, we don't have to repeat all the symptoms to you: cough, dry cough, fever, cold, sore throat, throat pain. Most important is loss of smell and taste. This is considered internationally as equivalent in RT-PCR. If somebody has got the other symptoms associated with loss of smell or taste, you can swear that the test result will be positive. And some people who develop diarrhea a little late, I'll come to that a little bit. What are the serious symptoms? Breathlessness, extreme exhaustion, altered sensorium are the serious symptoms. So most importantly, upper respiratory, lower respiratory, sometimes GI, serious patients will have breathlessness, extreme exhaustion and altered sensorium. This is very important, and as per the classification given by Government of India in the latest guidelines, 3 types of cases you see. Who is a definite case? A person who has got contact with COVID, of course, he has got the symptoms of COVID and he is positive for the test. What is the test? Either RT-PCR or a rapid antigen test or a CT. So which we will tell you which to use when. So any one of these tests is positive, symptoms are positive, contact is there. What is the thing that you do? Isolate and treat. This is a definite case versus a probable case where COVID contact is there, symptoms are there, but not yet tested or negative for the test. That is a probable case because test is negative, but is having all the symptoms of a definite case. You treat him as though you treat a definite case, but you quarantine him for 10 days because isolation is 14 days, quarantining is for 10 days. Okay, suspect case, that means he has a COVID contact with a close family member, or he is a hospital worker, or he worked with people who are having COVID positivity but not yet developed any symptoms or negative for the test and negative or not done. Such a person is called a suspect case. That means obviously a family member of a case who do not have symptoms, he will be a suspect case. He should not move out of the house and be under quarantine for 10 days and if possible test them also. This classification is essential for all of us. Definite case, probable case, suspect case. Definite case, all the 3 has the history of contact, has the symptoms, has the test positive, isolate and treat. Probable case, COVID contact positive, symptoms are present, not yet tested or test negative, quarantine, test and treat. Suspect, only contact is there, no symptoms, no test positive or not done, quarantine, test. And no treatment for them on the suspect case. They are just like any normal person but with the restriction of quarantine. Okay, what are the tests I order? I can order a sort of rapid antigen test to save time, and this is made available, empowered by the Government of India. Now latest we have got MyLab, which is an app you can download. There is a CoviSelf, capital S. CoviSelf is the test name. One can have a small kit like that, like pregnancy test kit. You can do a positive test there. If it is positive or negative, the result will be known in 20 minutes time. This is called rapid antigen test. Very much useful because RT-PCR sometimes not available or takes time. So do a rapid test. What will happen? The test can be positive or test can be negative. If the test is positive, it is a true positive. Don't ask for RT-PCR again on top of a rat test, which is superfluous and waste of time and waste of resources. The one is RT positive, he is a case and he has to be managed as per the protocol of a positive case or a confirmed case. Supposing the test is negative, 2 things. Is the patient symptomatic? No, not at all symptomatic. Declare him as negative, quarantine him and then observe him for a period of time and retest if the symptoms appear. Supposing he is negative, then he is having symptoms are there. This is the probable case. Test negative but symptomatic, send the sample for RT-PCR. All of us have to follow this protocol, not jump for the RT-PCR straight away. Some people will say, what if your rat is not available? It is available. Only thing is you have to make a little effort. It is available round the corner. It can be done in your own home. Almost all the laboratories are empowered to do a rapid test. So this is the protocol of the Government of India. Never do a repeat test RT-PCR to see whether the patient has become negative. We should not do. Never do an RT-PCR if a rat test is also positive, is already positive. Okay, this is very important. These are from the ICMR, Ministry of Health recommendations for that. No doctor's prescription is necessary for doing a rapid test. So what is the triage? Either RT-PCR is positive or the rat test is positive, then he is eligible for home isolation. Home isolation is the best thing if possible. If he is not able to have a home isolation for want of facilities at home, they can be admitted to a government facility called the COVID Care Center. And home isolation will have two types of people. One group of people who are test positive but asymptomatic, the other group of people who are test positive and have mild ILI symptoms. Both of them qualify for home isolation. If they cannot be isolated because they don't have the facilities or there is no caregiver in the home, then they have to go to the COVID Care Center. Supposing the disease turns moderate from mild, then of course they have to go to a dedicated COVID Care Health Center or a hospital. And people with comorbidities, age and decreasing oxygen saturation are candidates which are moving, which are qualifying for moderate treatment. So this is the treatment triage algorithm. So we have now got the testing algorithm, then we have got a triage algorithm. All of us have to follow. Don't just go and do a CT on the first day to diagnose COVID. That is not the procedure. If somebody is having symptoms, first thing is the rat test. If rat test is positive, straight away start the treatment. Rat negative, go for RT-PCR. Of course, somebody has got severe symptoms of pneumonia and then having breathlessness, hypoxia, then you are justified in ordering a CT in an isolated case, but not as a routine in the first week. Next one. Supposing a family member is positive, and then became a presumptive case or a confirmed case, what has to be done? Home isolation in a separate room, isolation in the strict sense for 14 days, because the viral excretion will be up to that. Start on the home care guidelines and treatment, and the patient has to wear N95 mask, use all disposables. Caregiver also better wears N95 or a medical mask or a double cloth mask. Monitor the symptoms 3 times a day. Watch for fever, breathlessness and SpO2. Trace if the patient has got any contact with the COVID patient. That almost confirms a presumptive case. And then you can inform them also that this person is positive and they will be careful enough and inform all the contacts, which is the social responsibility. Supposing a person has contacted 5 people and then he got tested positive, now he must inform all the 5 so that their families also will be tested. This way we can cut the transmission. So we have to follow all these things. One is home isolation in a separate room, N95 mask, use all the guidelines, caregivers should wear a mask, symptoms should be monitored, watch for breathlessness and SpO2, trace the contacts, inform all the contacts. Okay. Next one. So to summarize, 1 isolation, 2 N95, 3 general measures and 4 medicines. What are the medicines I used? Let us see. Medications as per guidelines will come in the next slide. General measures are plain water steam inhalation thrice a day. Don't ask me WhatsApp has said that steam inhalation is dangerous. We should not rely on the WhatsApp messages. Plain water if possible, RO water or filtered water. Anyway, you are going to boil it for inhalation. Nothing is going to happen. Throat gargling with salt and water thrice a day. Plenty of oral fluids, very important because hydration reduces the risk of thromboembolism. And stay at home only and do not contact anyone. Spouse, parent, children, all must be tested. Watch for other severe symptoms of COVID-19. This is either for a presumptive case or for a confirmed case. What are the general guidelines? I am repeating general guidelines. Thrice a day steam inhalation for 5 minutes at least each time. Throat gargling 3 times a day with salt water. Plenty of oral fluids. Indoor stay and completely in an isolated environment. No contact with anyone. All the contacts must be tested and watch for severe symptoms. So what does he do? He's got a lot of time. He must do breathing exercises. He can use balloons and blow the balloons by a respirator with the three tubes wherein you can suck it and test your inspiratory reserve volume, and that can be done as frequently as 4 or 5 times on each time, like that, repeated every 3, 4, 5 hours during the waking period. So room walking must be done. Prone position at least for 20% of the time. You must have the prone position. And what is the 6-minute walk test? This has proved very useful in predicting early disease. What do? We just take the pulse oximetry to start with and note the reading and ask the patient to do a plain walking at home. Not running, not uphill walking, not lifting weights. And at the end of 6 exact minutes, again read it. And it should be 2 or 3% more or at least the same. If it drops by more than 3%, then it indicates it is a 6-minute walk test is positive, which is very important. I am telling again, the patient should not forget to do breathing exercises, balloon blowing, respirator, room walking, prone position, 6-minute walk test. These are very essential because why many people are going into moderate disease? Because they are not allowing the lungs to properly expand and aerate the lungs with oxygen. So if you do that, the chances of getting pneumonic form will become much lesser. Okay, how do I do the pulse oximetry? So step 1 is remove the nail polish and warm your hand like this. Okay, not with cold hands. Then rest your hand for a while on the chest at the level of the heart. Then put the probe, oximetry probe onto the middle finger, preferably middle or index finger, not to the other fingers. And then take the reading after a minute once it stabilizes. Record and keep it for future. Identify each reading carefully and do the 6-minute walk at that time. If it is less than 94%, then we need to take action. This is a Government of India picture. I am going to share this picture. Share with all your patients also how to do an oximetry test. Not just hanging like that and keeping your finger like this and then just half a second you see. That is not the way we should do it. Do it in a proper way so that the readings are reproducible and readings are correctly done. Okay. Now the proning. So if in the supine position you see the lungs in the lower regions are very little aerated, particularly on the left side because of the weight of the heart, the left lung is not at all aerated. Also due to gravity, the liver and the intestinal structures, abdominal structures will push the diaphragm and the lower part of the lung is very ill ventilated. So now you keep the patient in the prone position, the heart falls forward and then the lungs are ready to expand. Likewise, when he sleeps on the abdomen, the liver weight goes down onto the bed and then the lung expansion will be much better. So this is the best way of ensuring that lungs are aerated well. It is time to turn around. So it may not be as much as 85, 95. Certainly I am sure proning will help in 3 to 4% increase and it can buy the critical time before the patient is shifted to an oxygen care center. So remember that doing a little turning over, at least 20% of the sleeping time, lying down time should be a prone position, which should be a habit for all of us, even with or without COVID, more so for a patient with COVID. So this is the Government of India photograph for the proning. How do you prone? Keep 2 pillows here under the abdomen and 1 pillow under the ankles and the shin of the tibia and 1 under the, of course, the head, and the hands are supported without hanging down. And that is the prone position. Who should not be prone? Pregnant women and immediately after taking food, and people who are not comfortable for more than 2-3 minutes by proning, don't prone them. So this is the proning is the one of the best methods of increasing your ventilatory capacity. Proning, breathing exercises, balloons, and then 6-minute walk test will go a long way in preventing movement of mild case into moderate case. Okay, you can set up a small isolation room or a facility in your own apartment complex or in your colony. What do you have in that? Paracetamol, vitamin C, zinc, ORS, blood sugar meter, oximeter, if possible oxygen concentrator, IR thermometer, BP monitor, surgical gloves, PPE kit, sanitizer, liquid soap, 3-ply mask, tissue paper, disposables, covered bin. So keep them right now in a small suitcase, and that COVID care room should have an access to 2 sets like this. If two persons can be treated. Breathing exercises are a must Prone position, very good for lung function. Normally our lower back parts and lungs are least aerated among all. We need to do regular breathing exercises. COVID or no COVID, breathing exercise should be a practice. What is breathing exercise? It is simply called deep inhalation, breath holding and exhalation. So sit like a Raja or a Rani, not crouching like this, and then take a deep breath. Eight counts. You hold the breath. Then, how many times? As many times as you can. Morning probably 5 minutes, afternoon and night. This is the best way of ensuring our lungs are well aerated. Please start doing now. We don't need to become COVID patients to start doing breathing exercise. This is also called pranayama, puraka, kumbhaka, rechaka. Puraka is filling, kumbhaka is holding, rechaka is whatever is the name. Inhalation, breath holding and exhalation. Of course, watch the video. I have shown you how it is to be done, and the apps are there for help. Now, what are the medicines that you prescribe? Here comes the problem. Because we have lot of knowledge about pharmacopoeia, and we would like to use all the pharmacopoeia in the hope that the COVID patient will come out very quickly if we give all the drugs in one go. This is the problem with not only 1 or 2 persons, most of the doctors. Okay. So what are the treatments accepted? Vitamin C 2 times a day, Bicassules along with zinc if possible. And don't ask me, are there randomized control trials? We have no evidence. But these are time-honored prescriptions for any viral illnesses to support the immunity. And vitamin C, B complex, zinc, they are not going to harm you. So give them for 15 days and dolo 2 or 3 times or 4 times on a need-based basis. Supposing the patient complains, I am having cough, I am having difficulty, chest congestion, you are at liberty to use Budamate 400 to 800. This is an inhalation, inhaled corticosteroid. Rotacaps twice a day, and remember, depending on the intensity, you can use 400 or 800, or you can use an MDI also, no problem, or you can nebulize the same thing with a nebulizer, which is much easier in case of children. Throat gargling thoroughly for 5 minutes after Budamate, because candidial superinfection is a common outcome of using this oral or inhaled corticosteroids, and you have to do a thorough gargling for that. You can use plain mucolytics like Ambroxol, any brand of Ambroxol or Mucolite, and or N-acetylcysteine. No cough suppressants, no bronchodilators. Don't use salbutamol. Don't use any one of these, beta agonists. Plain Ambroxol, plain N-acetylcysteine is the answer, because we want to bring out the sputum. And don't use, cough suppressants, definitely not. Because we want the sputum to come out, and then only the renewal of the macrophages can take place in the lining of the lungs. Okay, now, let us, one more thing that is recommended by the Ministry of Health is the ivermectin. Ivermectin is a sort of antiparasitic drug. It can be given as 12 milligram capsules available, and 3 times to 5 times depending on the symptoms. If the fever is continuing, up to 5 times, otherwise first 3 to 5 days, but not after the 5 days. This is of no use once the patient enters the second week of treatment. So this is all the treatment. There is no other treatment that is required or indicated or recommended in a national or international guideline. Vitamin C, B complex, paracetamol SOS, no NSAIDs, ivermectin, and if the patient is symptomatic for the lung, use Budamate either in any one of the forms, MDI, nebulizer, or a powder haler. And then Mucolite and N-acetylcysteine are the only things are required for majority of the patients. In an individual patient who develops some problem, need-based, you can use other drugs, but not routinely. Another important thing is what to avoid. This is where the pitfall is. Majority of us do commit a lot of mistakes in that. No antibiotics. Why? It is a pity we wanted to treat viral illness with antibiotics. What will happen? Antibiotics, we have seen people being prescribed. I'm not going to name anyone or anything, not find fault, to correct ourselves. What are the antibiotics? Doxy, removed from the recommendation. Second one is, the second antibiotic is azithromycin, no action on the virus at all. And third one they use is cephalosporins, Keftam or any other cephalosporins. I've even seen ciprofloxacin also. 3 or 4 antibiotics are pumped in for a very irrational way that broods antibiotic resistance, that broods antifungal that broods fungal infections in the ensuing days. So never try to give antibiotic unless you have a clear-cut evidence of bacterial sepsis which you know how to evaluate. Another thing I see in most of the prescriptions is favipiravir was given in the recommendation 6 months back. It is no more the drug recommended in any international or national agency. Don't use favipiravir. I have seen some people using tamsulosin also, which is an anti-influenza drug, which also don't use. So there is no oral antiviral medication as of now, either favipiravir or tamsulosin or azithromycin or doxycycline or cephalosporins or ciprofloxacin are out of place in the treatment. Please underline that and please refrain from doing it. Another thing I see is first day itself methylprednisolone. No, never start steroids in the first 5 days. Why? Because if you start steroids, the innate resistance of the body to overcome the virus is not supported, so much so the invasion of the virus takes place much faster. So steroids have a place to be given only after the first 5 days and not during the first 5 days unless the patient is sinking very fast. Beware of superinfections, resistant infections due to misuse, and no anticoagulants in the mild case. I've seen many doctors starting on anticoagulants. They give heparin injectable, or they give dabigatran, or they give rivaroxaban or apixaban straight away in the first few days. No. In the mild cases, there is no indication for them. There must be evidence of coagulopathy going on, and the patient should be in the moderate category. D-dimer should be very high, and then only you can start them. And some people are under the mistake that clopidogrel and aspirin are anticoagulants. They are not anticoagulants. They are only at best antiplatelets, and they have no role to play in case of COVID. Supposing a patient is take clopidogrel and aspirin, let him continue to take. You are not going to stop that. But these are not anticoagulants. These are antiplatelet agents. They have no role to play for coagulation here. No early CT, first day, second day, don't do CT. Inflammatory markers, testing blood, and I wanted to know what is my this one, that. No, don't do that unless there is a clinical indication to do that. And no RT-PCR if rat is positive, no repeat RT-PCR to confirm the negative result. These are the recommendations, and we are supposed to follow the recommendations. If we don't follow the recommendations, we are answerable. First to our consciousness, and secondly, in case there is a medical legal issue, they will ask you, why did you put him on steroid in the first 5 days? What is the role of antibiotic? Show me one evidence where antibiotic is required. And these are the answers we cannot answer, because we have to practice evidence-based medicine. You cannot practice unethical medicine. Sorry to say that. All the doctors, please be aware that it is not proper to go out of the recommendations and use according to our own judgment. This is not a child's play, and corona is not a laughing matter or a joking matter. Patient may succumb, and at that time all these will be done. How to monitor the patient? Important. SpO2 with the oximeter. Respiratory rate should be monitored. I tell you how to count the respiratory rate. Majority of us may not advise the patient. What you have to do is ask the patient to put the hand or one hand on the upper abdomen or the lower chest. Each time there is a breath, the hand raises up. Okay? Not voluntarily, you should not hold the breath. You should take normal breathing and then count it for a minute. And if it is more than 24, it is indicative of higher respiratory rate and then respiratory distress. Temperature should be monitored, breathlessness, altered sensorium. Watchwords 5, Panchapandavas. Oximetry, respiratory rate, temperature, breathlessness, altered sensorium. Monitor how frequently? 8th hourly is the recommendation, preferably 6th hourly, I say, and keep a record. And now, early recognition for higher care is crucial. If you recognize the patient is moving from mild disease to moderate disease, you have saved his life almost. And if that is done as early as possible, the chances of bringing him back will be normal, will be very good. So, for example, majority of the patients who died, either they have gone to the hospital too late without recognizing these things, or they are seeking medical help only in the 11th hour. No matter whether they are vaccinated or unvaccinated, it is important that these have to be followed. Alarm features: SpO2 levels less than 94, respiratory rate more than 24, temperature 101 continuously, particularly after the 5th day. By the 5th day, the mild case, the temperature drops. If there is a shoot up of the temperature or it continues beyond 5th day into 101 or more, then you are in for trouble with that patient. Breathlessness on mild exertion, not able to talk, walk, or read 2-3 lines in a paragraph. These are indications of worsening disease, moving from mild to moderate. And then these are the alarm features. Remember, first thing is isolation, masking, testing all the people is the first aspect. Second aspect is good nutrition, fluids, breathing exercises, and then respiratory exercises, and then the balloon, those things, and general measures like inhalations, and then the mouth washing, B complex, vitamin C, and then the zinc, and of course Dolo whenever required, withholding antibiotic, withholding antivirals, withholding steroids, withholding anticoagulants, unless there is an indication patient is moving into the moderate disease. And of course, the monitoring that is shown on this slide: SpO2, respiratory rate, temperature, breathlessness, and then feeling of not able to talk or read a paragraph. Now, what to use in the mild case? I have already shown you LIMC, Bicasule, this one, fluids, rest breathing exercises, balloon, respiratory rate, room walking, prone position, monitoring, and all these things. Again, emphasizing breathing exercises, balloon, respirator, room walking, prone position, 6-minute walk test. And then there comes, a type of patient who is not qualifying to get admitted, but who nonetheless has moved into early moderate disease, like his oxygen saturation is good and he is not having any other difficulty, SpO2 is normal, pulse rate is less than 100, respiratory rate is less than 24, but you have the patient is having cough and breathlessness slightly, and you did a test and there is evidence of increasing disease, you are qualified to put him on apixaban or rivaroxaban or dabigatran, whichever is your choice. And if it is apixaban, 5 milligrams once a day for 5 days. Methylprednisolone, 8 milligrams 3 times a day for 5 days. Of course, you can add some PPI, oxygen, if it is required. Mask can be given at home 2 to 6 liters. But the moment there is oxygen requirement or the SpO2 is dropping, we should consider putting them in the institution where other facilities are available. Again, these are highly essential even for that patient, because for him to come back to from moderate disease to recovery, he requires those things. Now, clinical care guidelines for maintenance treatment. So now he has finished 2 weeks, then I have to maintain him. What do? You reduce apixaban from 5 to 2.5, first week 7, second week half the dose 2.5, methylprednisolone 8 milligrams you have given, then for 4 days, then you reduce it to 8 milligrams BID, then 4 milligrams TID, like that you taper. Of course, PPI you can give. Of course, monitoring will continue. This is week 3 of a patient who has come out of a relatively early moderate disease. So about remdesivir, what you need to know about remdesivir? Essentials, as per the Government of India Ministry of Health recommendations, not to be used in the first 5 days. Majority of the doctors may tend to get remdesivir and use in the first 5 days. Don't do that, because first 5 days the viral replication is quite low and the drug is not going to be really effective. It is most used between the 6th to the 14th day for a period of 5 days during that period. During this 8 days period, use for 5 days remdesivir. No role in severe disease or after 14 days. Patient must need oxygen to give remdesivir. If the patient is not needing oxygen, remdesivir will not help. These are the guidelines. You have to go by that. For how much I give? 200 mg, 2 bottles stat, followed by 1 bottle 100 milligrams for 4 days. Total 6 bottles, 6 vials of remdesivir 100 mg is required. But remember, not in the first 5 days, not after the 14 days, not in the severe disease, not when there is no need for oxygen. And no home remdesivir, my dears. Don't try to connect drip and start giving remdesivir. It is not recommended. It should be in the institution. Patients in CKD, patients in liver failure are contraindications for remdesivir. Pregnancy is an absolute contraindication for remdesivir. Remember, it is not a magic bullet. If remdesivir is not given, nothing will happen. But if you don't give steroid and anticoagulant and oxygen at the right time, we may lose the patient. Too much reliance on remdesivir is unwarranted. It is appearing as though they are going to remove remdesivir altogether from the armamentarium of treatment. As on date, it is available for institutionalized patients with these requirements in place. Okay. Now, hospital treatment, what do they give if they are admitted? They convert to injectable Solumedrol or IV Evaporet or whatever is that, 1 to 2 milligrams. 1 milligram becomes 60-70 milligrams, 2 milligrams becomes 140 milligrams, divided in 3 doses, IV for 5 days, Cleeks in 40 milligrams. This is an oral, the low molecular heparin twice a day for 5 days. Remdesivir, as I have told you in the previous slide, oxygen better given as a mask or a rebreather mask. And remember, oxygen is a drug. You can't just like that push oxygen more. More amount of oxygen is also injurious to the lung. So it requires to be a little tricky. Most of the general practitioners are not tuned or aware or trained to use oxygen therapy. Beware of that. Monitoring the disease progression, inflammatory markers and HRCT as and when desired, diabetic control, particularly switching on to insulin will be very helpful. Supportive measures, no convalescent plasma. This has been removed from the treatment armamentarium. Now, new changes in the treatment. What are the changes that happened over the last 1 month or so? No convalescent plasma anymore. There is a new drug called the Virafin. What is that? It is pegylated interferon alpha 2B. Pegylated interferon alpha 2B is already being used in hepatitis C, and that has been repurposed for this, and it is recommended now. It is a moderate disease. It is an emergency use authorization. It is a subcutaneous injection, 1 dose only, given pegylated interferon for hospitalized patients. It is already available. There is another drug which is approved by the government of India, 2-deoxy-D-glucose, also called the 2-DG, which is available as powdered sachets for moderate to severe cases. The mechanism of action is, if there are respiratory lining cells or the lining cells which are affected by the virus, the ACU2 receptor holding cells, this particular drug has got an affinity to go and sit in those cells and stop viral replication. This is also emergency use authorization. It is available as powder, as I told you. What is the schedule? How many doses you have to give? In the trials they have given for 5 days in the moderate disease, but that has not yet come, and it will be available from mid-June from Dr. Reddy laboratory. Then we know better information how to use this particular medicine. It appears it will be a game changer. Now, there is another thing called the antibody cocktail. These are antibodies tailored specifically against the spike proteins of the SARS-CoV virus. These are monoclonal antibodies, just like the antibodies that you develop after the vaccination or after the infection. These are developed in the lab, and this is giving the passive immunity. Active immunity is give the vaccine and wait for the antibodies to develop. And passive immunity is give straight away the antibodies, just like the anti-tetanus serum or anti-rabies serum. These are the antibodies prepared in the lab and given. A cocktail of casirivimab and imdevimab is combined, and this is being marketed by Roche Cipla combined. And again, we have got an emergency use authorization. This is what has been used in the West with some good success, and this might also prove very useful. A little expensive, around 60,000 rupees per dose, and one may require 2 to 3 doses depending upon the severity. This is an antibody cocktail. There is no need of RT-PCR or RAT test or CT report for admission. Earlier, to admit a patient, they were insisting on an RT-PCR report or a RAT test report or a CT report. Government of India has waived all those things. If the patient has symptoms and if he is desaturating, that is good enough reason in the pandemic to believe it is due to COVID and admit them. And earlier there are some problems with the ID card, like people not having Aadhaar card, this card, that card, they are not admitted. Now that also is removed. No ID card is required. If he is staying in India and comes for treatment, you admit. That's it. There is no ID is asked. You can give ID, but they may ask you the ID, but it cannot be mandatory. Okay. Likewise, an RT-PCR report, a RAT test report, a CT report is not mandatory. ID card is also not mandatory. And self-testing is available. Covisel, manufactured by My Labs, the first COVID test kit for self-use, is available in the market. One can use it and download the My Labs app. You have to take a screenshot of your test from the phone, and it gets tagged to the ICMR registry that whatever is the result, it will be fed there. These are the new changes. No convalescent plasma, Virafin, 2DG, and then the antibody cocktail. No need for any report to get admitted. No need for the ID card, self-COVID test. These are some of the changes that have occurred. What are the tests I order? I see we doctors ordering more than 1 dozen tests, not required. CBCSR is a must, LDH is required, CRP is required, D-dimer is required. These are the base minimum things. If possible, do LFT, serum creatinine, serum ferritin, and interleukin. The first 4 are must, 5, 6, 7 optional, depending on what you would like, you can do it. HRCT only if the patient is symptomatic. Never repeat the HRCT. Why? The changes in the HRCT will be there for 3-4 weeks or even 2 months, and you cannot say a patient is cured based on the HRCT. So don't do it in the first 5 days and use it judiciously, because CT scan is not a joke. It involves some amount of radiation, whatever may be the radiation and cost also, and use it judiciously. And then the three I am going to give you quickly a summary of this. This is called the 3-rule COVID. 3 must remember alarm signs. High grade fever even after 5 days. High grade fever even after 5 days. Increasing dry cough while sleeping and talking. Exertion, dyspnea on exertion, worsening from before. These are the 3 alarm symptoms rather. Okay, points not to forget on the first OP visit or televisit. 6 to 12 days is the dangerous period. 6 to 12 days is the dangerous period. As soon as possible, report as soon as possible if danger signs are present. Give a printed form. What are the alarming signs? Ask him to report immediately. Avoid long prescriptions, 10 plus drugs. I have seen some prescriptions which contain both the sides of the page. All sorts of vitamins, all antibiotics, all pain relievers, all antivirals there. There is no room for that. Patient will miss taking the important medication like your steroid or anticoagulant if you have prescribed. So try to reduce the number of medicines that you prescribe. Now, must have things with home treated patient. Must have 3 things. A thermometer, IR thermometer or digital thermometer, pulse oximeter, hospital contact, doctor contact, and if possible your test report. These the patient should carry always. Reasons for late presentation. Attributing the fever to I took vaccination, so I had fever. I thought it is vaccine fever. Vaccine fever cannot last more than 48. The other thing is I slept in the AC. Probably I got a AC cold and fever. No. I took Murungaka, I took Elumichapalan juice, adhanal I got cold fever. No. In this pandemic, all cock and bull and then grandmother stories are null and void. One has got symptom of fever, throat pain, cold, anosmia. He is a case. He doesn't require any other test. It is a confirmed case of COVID only. Use Dolo 6th early. 1 week, some people use. I am getting fever. For 1 week I was taking 4 tablets and no fever. Now the fever is 102. They have masked the fever. Don't do that. If the temperature is less than 100, ask them not to use the use the paracetamol. Wrong timeline, reporting testing day as 1. So they say, let's say they have symptoms on 15th and they tested on the 20th. When did you get COVID? 20th. No, got on the 15th. The first day of symptom is the day 0 or the first day. Then golden rules, not to be bitten by COVID. That means not to become a victim for COVID. Prevent infection at all cost. Yes, that is, sanitization, masking and social distance. No visitor, no visiting for 1 more month. In Karnataka, the lockdown is extended till the end of June. Already we are in lockdown for 1 month, 1 more month fully. From today they have announced. Listen to the body's early symptoms. Isolate and start. Don't presume this could be due to that, this and all. Most important, monitor faithfully SpO2, pulse and respiratory rate. The reason for failures are not monitoring mostly. 3 things to be monitored daily: SpO2, temperature, heart rate. If possible, respiratory rate. 3 clues to catch early hypoxia. Mandatory 6-minute walk test is the one which brings out the happy hypoxia. A febrile resting heart rate. Patient doesn't have fever. Heart rate is more than 101. We are in for happy hypoxia. Cough on lying down, deep inspiration and speech difficulty is also happy hypoxia. Monitor symptoms, 3 minor symptoms that can be ignored. Most of the patients bug me, sir, I am still having this anosmia, I am 15 days already into COVID. Doesn't matter, it will come back. Likewise the taste. Stuffy nose, cold and body aches and throat pain are not dangerous symptoms. Anosmia is a diagnostic symptom, but it is not a symptom of worsening disease. 3 lab parameters indicating storm. CBP, if you do a complete blood count, NL ratio, that is neutrophil lymphocyte ratio. Normally neutrophils are 75 and lymphocytes are 20. 1:3:1 is the ratio. Here more than 3.5, or somebody has got monocytes more than 8%. That also is indicative lab parameter. CRP, raising ferritin, LDH are inflammatory markers. D-dimer is a coagulation risk. Normally it is 500. Anything more than 1000 is a high D-dimer. Between 500 and 1000, it is raising D-dimer. Okay, 3 lab values and resource poor settings. Total, the blood count, NL ratio, CRP, ESR and chest X-ray are in resource poor areas. 3 things about the CT. Day of illness, normal CT misleads early. So don't do the early CT. Severity score, don't look at CORAD. CORAD is the radiologist's way of grading it for confirmation of the disease. CORAD 5 means he has test positive. It doesn't mean that he is a very severe case. But on the other hand, the amount of lung involvement in terms of 8/25, 12/25, that is important. Anything 8/25 is moderate, 16/25 is severe, less than 8/25. The amount of lung involvement infiltrates in the lung, and the various changes are important rather than the CORAD 5. Don't look at the CORAD 2, CORAD 4, CORAD 5, they tell nothing. Progressive and resolving changes the resolving changes, you cannot see the resolving changes. Progressive changes, unless there is a substantial shift in the patient's condition, you cannot even get that on the CT. So maybe it can be used for progressive disease, but definitely not for resolving disease. 3 unnecessary tests. CT chest to see if the improvement occurred. Sir, I had COVID, 2 weeks treatment taken, I have taken a CT, please see whether it is normal or not. Who asked you to take that? You have no business to take a CT when there are no symptoms. Despite clinical improvement, why do you want to do a CT test? PCR, rapid test at day 14, not recommended at all. Lab markers, despite clinical improvement. I have one patient, I told him not to do any test. On the 20th day, he went and gave me a markers, 20 different markers. Why? Because his manager asked. Why? What is your manager? He is an IT guy. Ask him to not to practice medicine. He cannot ask when the tests have to be done. So don't overdo the test also. This is very important. 3 mistakes to avoid. Starting steroids very early in the first 5 days. Don't do that because viral clearance is delayed, duration of illness is prolonged, late and severe storm could be the possibility. Early CT and lab workup before the 5th day. Unless the patient is sick, don't do that. Missing on prophylactic anticoagulation when the D-dimer is showing that he requires anticoagulation could be a grave mistake. 3 indications for cytokine storm: respiking of the fever, continuation of high fever, chills after the 5th day. Loose stools after the 5th day is again indicating cytokine storm. Increasing dry cough, breathlessness and exhaustion is also indicative of cytokine storm. 3 supportive care measures usually neglected: prone positioning, glycemic control, good fluid intake. If you don't have good fluid intake, you are in for thrombotic risk. If you don't control glycemia, you are in for bacterial infections and fungal infections. Prone position is the best way of improving the lungs sort of aeration. 3 most important medications to counter the storm: steroid, anticoagulant, oxygen. Steroid, anticoagulant, oxygen, and not remdesivir or tocilizumab. 3 mistakes with steroids: very early use of steroids, irrespective of the dose, whatever the dose you use, using very high doses beyond 80 milligrams 2 times daily, and not tapering at the earliest moment could be a sin because you will precipitate fungal infections, candidiasis, mucormycosis, and other things. 3 must-do things if hypoxic, waiting for a bed: home or CCC or an ambulance, dexamethasone, Clexine, that is the enoxaparin, and don't panic if remdesivir is not available. The above 2 drugs make all the difference and not remdesivir. Causes of exhaustion in COVID: viral myalgia, cytokine storm, happy hypoxia, hyperglycemia are the 3 reasons for exhaustion. Complications with steroids: poor glycemic control, we expect it, monitor, control. Bacterial sepsis, opportunistic infections like rhino-ocular mucormycosis or pulmonary aspergillosis can be complications of steroid. Not everybody gets it, particularly who are diabetic, who are in ICU, who are prolonged steroids, high-dose steroids. They are in for those things. 3 points to remember with remdesivir: mild disease, no indication; moderate, affordable, available, give. Do not delay. Affordable, not available, do not panic. Not affordable, unavailable, don't bother. Severe, too late, no role for remdesivir. 3 things must be avoided: WhatsApp forwards, Google search and updates, news channels, YouTube and other gossip and the social media should be faithfully avoided to come out of COVID panic and then COVID psychosis. Things which are making the difference: willpower and immunity, faith in the treatment and adhering to the treatment, and monitoring is the rule, and power of the Almighty. So with this, I am closing my talk. Namaskar to everyone. Of course, there is a golden rules. Whatever vaccine is available, take without hesitation. SMS, that is, social distancing, mask, and then the sanitization, high index of suspicion, early isolation, careful monitoring of a probable or confirmed case. Do not be afraid to use steroid if required. Monitor sugars and keep sugars under control, preferably with insulin. Beware of post-COVID manifestations and black fungus. Spread awareness and action plan, and not fear. Not fear about the fatal news, and then don't spread those things. With this, I'm going to close, and this is the way to greet people in not only in COVID times. The Indian way of greeting, Vanakkam or Namaskar, is the only way. With this, I am ending. I am making everybody to open their mics and then use that allow participants to unmute themselves.